you.
Thanks very much, Vicky. Let me just add my welcome to everybody. Delighted to see you all, and thanks particularly, as Vicky said, to those who are presenting today. I'm going to spend just a few minutes providing a bit of a context, and I'm particularly excited about this webinar, focusing in on small cohorts, because of what the data says about how important that is, and that's what I'm going to cover for you briefly. But just so you've got a record there, you'll know, as Vicky said, who we're going to hear from later on. I'm delighted as well that particularly in the webinar series, what we really want is for them to be both practical in terms of hearing from people who are actually doing things, sharing the practice that you've got with others, learning, picking up tips, as well as being able to ask questions and get some answers for those, but also then things you can do afterwards in terms of who else can help. So, for example, today, Charmian's bringing some insight as to the kind of stuff they're funding and what support you could get from them, as well as from others. And the webinar series will continue to do that, to give you input into what else you can do to get help, where you can go to get help, who else might be to help you in the work you do to support service children. So I'm delighted that we're doing that today, as much as we will in all the other sessions too. Briefly, if you don't know the Alliance well, then please go onto the website and find out more. You can see here from our mission that our central purpose is to bring those people who have a stake in service children's lives together. And then we use that collective effort and skill and insight to produce evidence-based tools. And the best example of that is the Thriving Lives Toolkit. And if you want to read the background research to that, you can do that on our website. If you want to see the testing process in the website, you'll see that as well. And I'm going to say a little bit something else about that in a moment, because that's quite important to its utility in schools with very few service children. I think it's worth saying then, as is captured here, while you may not want to go to the lengths of reading all that research, you're very welcome to it. And if you want to talk more about it separately, then I'm happy to talk to you about it. But the thing to say is that this toolkit has been deliberately designed to be as equally applicable in a school that's got one child and a school that's got 300-400. And there are schools, of course, that have that. And that was important to me. My background as a teacher, overseeing lots of different kinds of programs, extracurricular programs, and sort of whole school strategies around this kind of work, showed me really early on that there are things you can do at a cohort level, but ultimately as teachers, as professionals in schools, our skill and our ability is partly about our profession and the training we've had, but it's also about just being in front of a person, a young person, knowing them as deeply as we possibly can. And wherever possible, we need to personalize and individualize the support we give. That's what we do, right? We care about young people. We care about children. So the closer we can get to the individual, the better. So this toolkit was specifically tested and designed not to say this is what you do in this situation, because you couldn't translate what was going on in a school with 100 kids to a school that's got 2. It's not practical. Instead, it asks the right questions. And those questions then went through a testing process in schools in Scotland and Wales and Northern Ireland, England, in schools that had Army mainly, RAF and Navy and Marines, in schools that had very few and a lot of children. So that it could have equal utility in all those different places. I want to say just the main point I want to make is just really about service children as a cohort. And then, like I said, this point about why it's so important to think about small numbers. There isn't really any really very reliable data about how many service children there are. That's partly because the data isn't collected uniformly across the UK. It's captured differently under different definitions in Scotland and Wales, Northern Ireland and England. The definitions used are different, like I said, in those different places, but also then the mechanisms for capturing them as well. But reasonable estimates suggest we're talking about a really large group of children, really, really large, and a large number in veteran families as well as in serving families. What we're going to say a little bit about now is just what we can gather from the data that's in England. And we're hearing today from a school in Wales, which I'm delighted about. And I know that we've got schools from other parts of the UK as well. But the English data is the data that's most easily available to us. And we have a tool on our website we're going to just show you briefly in a moment. But what we do know about the data from Wales and from Scotland, from reports by Forces Education Scotland and from SCiP Cymru in Wales, is that the patterns are reasonably similar in all of those places. You can flip a coin on any given school, and there's a 50-50 chance it'll have a service child in it. So they are much more dispersed than most people realise. You'll know this. And because of the smaller numbers, the concentrations, there's loads more proportionally in secondary schools in more secondary schools than in primary schools. But the key thing for today is that when you pick one of those schools that has at least one service child in, half of them have only one or two. The most likely number, if you find a school that has at least one service child in, the most likely number is one. That is the most likely number. That's the median average is one. The tool, just a bit of an aside, if you are in England or if you're outside England and interested and want to lobby for this to be available in wherever you are in Wales or Scotland, it's possible, but the governments don't always collect the data or make it available. It's just worth noting that the tool is out there. It could be a mechanism that you might find useful just to see the spread of service children across the country. There's a mechanism in there that allows you to see the numbers of children by primary and secondary school in each local authority in England, and also then to create a comparison report. So you can highlight two areas and see what those local authorities look like against each other or added up. And then it has a function that allows you just to download and print a PDF of that report. So if you're talking to local partners and wanting to come up with kind of collected approaches, you can get a sense of the scale and the distribution of your population. So it's a really, really useful tool. And we would love to do the same thing in Wales and in Scotland and Northern Ireland. And there is potential to develop in those ways, and we're pushing for that certainly, but there are partners in those places who are making progress. There is data on the SSC Cymru website because they've done analysis there, so you can see similar data. It's not as detailed as the stuff on our tool, but if you want to find it. And a report called Rallying to the Flag in Scotland is one of the only mechanisms at the moment to identify the service children in Scotland. I want to just finish by saying one thing about that distribution. Like I said before, that if you look at the local authorities with the most service children, it's a really important point to make. You can see here from on the left here that those 12 local authorities account for half of all service children. And it's a common statistic. If you've been in this world at all, they account for half of them. So lots of the activity that goes on focuses at a local authority level and those areas where there's high concentration. And that's both a useful thing because you can do one or two larger scale things and reach a lot more children. That's great, of course, for having an impact on the cohort. But it's not so great when you realise, of course, then that all those other local authorities also account for the other half. But that is 120, 30 local authorities in England that you're dealing with. The other thing I wanted to say is that in spite of that picture that there are local authorities with loads of service children and then there are local authorities with fewer, within those local authorities, the same pattern exists that I've spoken of nationally, that the most common profile you'll find is small numbers. In Wiltshire, that top one up there that has more service children than any others, 7,280, and accounts in a single authority for 1 in 10 service children. They're in 93% of schools, you can see from this, which is a little screenshot from our tool. But 60% of those schools have 12 or fewer service children. 20% of the schools that have service children in Wiltshire only have 1 or 2. So it doesn't matter if you're in a local authority that has loads and loads of service children, you are still going to get the same kind of spread that in a large number of cases, there will be schools that have very, very few and therefore less resource, perhaps less experience, or because of the inability to have resource to be able to engage with training and support. Those that have more are closer to bases routinely and therefore naturally have stronger relationships. But as you're going to see today, that's not always the case. And it is possible to do great things with small numbers. So that really ends my introduction. I'd happily talk to anybody else in more detail if you want to know more about the data or the research behind it or everything else that the Alliance is up to. But over to you, Vicky. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Phil. Phil's given an overview about the picture, obviously, over United Kingdom and more specifically England, like I said, because of the data. But we're really happy to welcome today Lindsay and Kaylee. Phil, would you mind stop sharing your screen? So Lindsay, you should be able to share it from your end. And they're going to talk to you about what they do in their school with their low service children numbers, because they do some fantastic things to support their service children. And then we will move on to speaking to Charmian for AFA. If anyone's got any questions when Lindsay and Kaylee are talking along, if you just raise your hand on the chat and then we can pause and you can ask questions as we go through, or you can wait to the end and ask questions at the end as well. Thank you, Lindsay. If you wouldn't mind sharing your screen, and then we can you can talk about your school.
Right, Victoria, can you see that?
I could, but it's just, oh, now I can, yeah.
Right, fantastic. Okay, so welcome everybody. Hello, I'm Lindsay. I'm the head teacher at Cwmlyd Primary School. I've been in post as head teacher for the last 4 years, where I've had the pleasure of working with an incredibly committed staff to ensure that our school is nurturing and an inclusive environment. Staff and family wellbeing is a high priority for all of us at the school, and for myself as a leader and Kaylee as my deputy, and this is very much reflected in our ethos. Kaylee is my deputy. She leads SSC throughout our school, and currently we're working towards the Gold Award. Today we've been asked by Victoria to share with you our experience of supporting small cohorts of children. I think at most we've had 6 children, which is a huge percentage of service children within our school, but currently, as Phil just said, we have 1 child in our school at the moment. Wellbeing and inclusivity is at the heart of our school, and supporting every child in whichever way we can is a priority. As our service children lead, Kaylee has been at the heart of this. She's led this change throughout the school to ensure that our small cohort of children and their families feel seen and supported. She's worked closely with the whole team, with our colleagues and parents to ensure that our provision is effective in nurturing our service children and giving them the best possible support. So this is a little bit of context about our school. We are not a very big school. We've got 190 pupils thereabouts on roll. Currently it says 178 in there, but we've had an influx of children moving into the area. We've got 7 mainstream classes and a full-time nursery provision. That's something that's funded as a school, as given the baseline and the area that we serve, we felt that a full-time nursery provision is required for the children that we have coming in. We have got a local authority nurture provision as part of our class, which is a learning resource base. So there's 8 children and 3 adults in there. And I think lots of the provision that is put into nurture has helped to sort of shift the ethos throughout the school. So lots of the strategies and interventions that we have in place. We've got 38% free school meals, 8 pupils with an IDP, and 7 children with an ASD diagnosis. And again, you can see from our stats there the number of children with English as additional language, ADHD and CLA learners. Our exclusion rates have gone up in the last couple of years with an influx in autumn term, which has seen some changes in behaviour, which is why wellbeing and all of the strategies we put in place is a priority for us. We are an English medium school, despite our very Welsh name, and it served the community since 1880. So there is a high level of unemployment within our community, and it tends to be that families have all gone through this school. So we've got, you know, children now whose grandparents and parents attended the school when they were younger. We've got very strong links with our local community, and the school is very much a hub and at the heart of the community. And we offer, you know, a diverse range of experience for our learners. So, as I've said at the start, wellbeing is a priority for us. We offer a range of different support packages for our children. We're an accredited nurturing school. We're an accredited trauma-informed school. We provide a wide range of additional support through therapy. We're trialling this term a therapy dog sessions through the Baxter Project. We work very closely with HMP Park in Bridgend, because we have got a high percentage of children with parents incarcerated. So we have developed links with those to support those children. We provide ELSA support. Seven Breakfast is an in-house wellbeing breakfast, which acknowledges that some of our children struggle with that transition from home to school, and that they need that sort of positive start to the morning by having an opportunity to chat to an emotionally available adult or just to check in. We offer a wide range of courses for our families, and that parental engagement is huge as a school, you know, and as leaders, we recognise that the benefits of home to school links. But that said, the area that we serve, a number of our families are unemployed. So a range of those parental courses are linked to upskilling our parents, whether that's in a cooking course or working closely with outside agencies like Communities for Work to get our parents back into work and upskill them there. we very much think outside the box when it comes to supporting our learners, and we're willing to trial any strategies to find out which works for individuals. You know, and I think that kind of leads on to our reasoning of how we become to work with SSCE.
So as you can see, we've put a little journey together for us with SSCE. It seems like a long, long time ago that we started this, doesn't it? But it wasn't that long ago. So Jodie at the time was the school liaison officer. She was extremely helpful. She introduced us to SSCE and the importance of kind of supporting these children. Like Lindsay has just explained, we are very inclusive. We've got goodness knows how many vulnerable learners on our books. But this was something quite new to us that we hadn't really given the thought that maybe it deserved. So when Jodie got in touch, we grabbed the opportunity to see kind of where we were at that point, and what we needed to do to make sure that we could support both the children, but their families as well. So she gave us the bronze audit, and I started working my way through it. It's a very helpful tool to see, like I said, where we were. I've got it in front of me, the one that we did, with lots of things on there, you know, that I could talk about, from, you know, just making sure as a staff we were aware of SSCE and what it meant, but also to contact the families to let them know that this is something that we are doing and that we are here to support you and we're here to work together, and do whatever we can to help, really, if there is anything that we can do to help. Like you've said, we had 6 at the most at one time. That's not many families in such a small area, you know, to lean on and to support each other. And in fact, many of them didn't realise that there were other people employed by the armed forces and so forth.
And I think that questionnaire that we sent out to parents, you know, highlighted for us there were some children that we wouldn't have recognised or known that, you know, they had parents who were veterans within the community. And that highlighted for us as well as a school some of these children we probably would have overseen.
And have been through things, you know, they've been through moves. We knew they'd been through moves, but not necessarily why. We had a little boy, didn't we, who was moving to Cyprus, and we were able to support him much more, you know, well, really, than we would have been able to without SSCE, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But you can see we identified the service children, we notified the families of what we were doing, notified them of me as the lead and who they could contact in the school. We amended our admission forms and prospectus to ensure that, you know, it was out that way as well, that everybody was aware of the safeguarding needs and SSCE needs. We updated the website as well, promoted the links with SSCE. The newsletter that comes out, you know, we made sure that that went out to all parents, so they were aware of anything going on within the local authority that they could attend.
And it definitely improved their communication with us. I know that one little boy that we'll talk about in more depth later, his mum was saying how he was struggling at home when dad was away and different things, and we were able to reach out to the team that was able to support us then with different pointers for mum and different strategies that mum could put in place at home. And I know that that's not just having a positive impact on this little one's school life, it was having a positive impact at home too.
Yeah, definitely. So then once we had identified our own school and what we needed, we looked further afield to the cluster schools. Like you said, we've got a very small number of service children, but we knew that there were service children in the schools within our cluster. So we got together as staff, and we decided that all the leads would come together and we would decide how we could support these children on a larger level. Maybe we know about funding and things like that, and it was going to be much easier to put events on if we were together, rather than, you know, isolated as just our school. So we had a lovely cluster event that took place. We had a gentleman that I knew who is a lieutenant. I can't remember his full name, but he's army, and he came in with our children, and he actually worked with the whole school. So we didn't just work with those service children. He came in, he stood at the front of an assembly and he introduced himself. They absolutely loved it, as you can imagine. He brought ration packs, he brought his uniforms that they could try on. Obviously, he had permission, but he brought them in and the children absolutely loved it. And it just raised the profile for the whole school, really. And the service children in our school, they felt seen, you know, this is who we are, and they could relate. We also did a cluster event where all of the cluster schools came to ours, the service children in the cluster schools, and we did some they did some PE activities. I'm trying to think of the word. They did PE activities together. They had like a little snack together. They were able to discuss things. We did the ball of wool activity where they said something about themselves. So one would say, my mommy works in the army, and you should have seen their eyes light up when they were like, no way, and mine. And you know, that they're conversations that maybe they couldn't have in their own class in school or in their own friendship group. And it was lovely to see. And it was that good that they actually started planning the next one. The children started planning the next one before we'd finished that one, which was lovely. You know, they could tell they were enjoying it. We had Forces Fitness come in, which was funded to be able to do things with the whole school as well. So it was really involving everybody. Lots of people from SSC came, and we got in touch with Maureen Weber, who is the lead in RCT for service children. Numerous people came. I know, I think I saw Joanna Wolf's name. I know that she was involved in it. There were lots of people. I mean, the support from SSC is huge, isn't it, in helping us to run these events. They put on another event down in Pontypridd where, you know, our children were recognised when we got the Bronze Award, and they went to the Mayor's Parlour and they had lunch in the park, and it was just lovely, you know, for those children to have that extra. You can see then that we went on to source funding. You heard us talk very briefly about a child who was going to Cyprus. Mum was he was settled here. You could tell that he was quite anxious over the move. Like Lindsay said, Mum was seeing behaviours at home. So when we spoke to Jodie at the time about it, she said, look, we'll see if we can source some funding for this child in particular. And we'll see if we can get some sort of intervention for him. We did get the funding, which was brilliant. And we were able, for our ELSA support, to have a bit more time with this child, doing ELSA, emotional literacy support, but also she was able to do some little troopers work as well, which again was fantastic. The children really, really enjoyed doing the little troopers work. It worked so well, in fact, with him, and the impact was seen so greatly at home and in school that we decided to roll that out further with the other children, and they actually did little troopers buddies where the older children, the older service children, linked in with the younger service children, and they had lots of activities within the school day where they could get together, work through the little troopers intervention, but also have that time with an emotionally available adult, like you saw on the previous slides. And then you can see the Armed Forces Day cluster celebration, which I did jump to earlier. I jumped all the way to number 8. But yeah, another cluster celebration, you know, it's just making sure, I think, that we keep the profile of service children up, not only for the service children, but for the rest of the children as well. They got a lot out of these cluster celebrations that we've done. Like I said, when Ryan came in, the careers that the children were saying to him, oh, how did you do it? And I know, what jobs can you get? You know, so even looking at that, it was really helpful to them.
It was. And I was going to say, that little boy that Dad was posted in Cyprus, we've still kept our contact. So they told us when he left, he would be back in 4 years. They email me quite regularly. We're a Welsh school. They don't teach Welsh in Cyprus. They emailed me back, you know, a couple of months ago, what can you send us that he can keep practicing his Welsh, because we don't want him to fall behind on that. We sent them with a load of different sort of home learning types of things that they could do whilst they were away in Cyprus. And I think we're expecting him back next year. And all his friends hopefully are very excited, you know, to have him back. But Celebrating Armed Forces Day is something that is now in our school calendar every year, and it's one of the days, you know, that the children all really look forward to. Be that from, you know, external providers that come in and support and lead different activities for the children, to actually our staff have been more upskilled with having that ability to lead these sessions, and they've got that sort of increased knowledge. We were awarded our silver award last year, and I think, you know, we complete the Thriving Lives Toolkit. Kaylee, at the time that we were going through editing and the Thriving Lives Toolkit, Kaylee was on maternity leave. So I suppose my message there is, you know, it was very straightforward and easy to use. As Phil said earlier, it was a real thinking and reflection point for us as a school. You know, as part of our self-evaluation monitoring, it's something that we will revisit and we'll continue to look at. But it can't be just that one person leading, because if Kaylee was the only person in the school with all of this knowledge and all of these skills, when she went off on maternity, we would have really struggled. But knowing that it's a top-down approach led by the two of us, it meant that I was able to complete the Thriving Lives Toolkit in Kaylee's absence with the rest of the staff. And I think that's important, is having that conversation, everybody together, just like we would most other monitoring throughout the school.
I just popped a few of the quotes on here that I won't read them out. Obviously, you can read them yourself, I'm sure. But it's just lovely to see, to be recognised. You know, we are recognising our children, and so are other people. You know, you can see the Millie from the SSC programme, Jeremy Miles and Brigadier Andrew Dawes. It's just lovely, you know. The SSC, like I said, they are so supportive in helping you on this journey to be able to support your children. It doesn't matter how small a number that you've got, these children still matter. They are a group of more vulnerable children, but more vulnerable learners, and they need the support just like any other group of vulnerable learners. And needs to go under the radar and them not know what support is out there, because, you know, we're a tiny village in the back of beyond of the Rhondda and Taff, but yet they have got our support network. And we were able to reach out, and we were shocked at, you know, how many families across the cluster, you know, are actually part of armed forces. And these children now will have been supported in the primary sector. They are now going to take that into the secondary sector. We work with our secondary, was actually an all-through school now, but at least those children and the parents can now go into secondary school knowing the support that is available to them. They've got, you know, those good foundations to be able to continue.
Yeah, we've also signposted our parents. I know in Wales there have been like a number of family fun days that have been organised by SSC Cymru, whether that's in Ponty Park or other areas throughout Wales, and we've been able to signpost our families. Now they've got a lot out of that from sort of linking with others with similar experiences. We've linked with the Valley's veterans that, you know, have come in and spoke to our children, you know, their real life experiences. Our service children represent us as part of our remembrance parade. And we link them with the cluster schools again with that. But I think our knowledge as well, moving on to that comprehensive, we were in a position where we were able to say to the comp school, because they didn't feel they had service children, that actually, you know, we have, and we've been able to support other schools as well through our experiences. This really is just, you know, a little bit of some of the impact from us as a school. And I suppose, you know, even though we've got a small cohort of children, we are feeling that impact, you know, and really proud of the progress that we've made. We've increased the knowledge of how to support our service children. The children are more willing and able to talk to staff about their worries, those links with the cluster schools, you know, particularly the secondary, and even, I suppose, upskilling those secondary staff as well with regards to how to support the service children moving forward based on their experiences from the primary. And all staff are now aware of the service children and their needs. And that's our contact details should you have any questions or want to reach out. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much to both of you. That was really helpful. Has anyone got any questions that they would like to ask now? before we move on to the next section, because it might make more sense to do it now before we move on. I don't know if anyone in the anyone attending's got any questions at all. Charmian?
Yeah, just one. It's brilliant to hear what you're doing. It's fantastic and great that you're working with the clusters. When do you ask parents whether they're service families? Is it like when they first come to look around the school, or what's your process for finding them now?
As part of our admission form, which it wasn't really, you know, something that we thought about pre-working with SSCE. So initially we did a questionnaire out to parents to sort of like a bit of background and what support we could put in place, because that was the other thing. They weren't telling us these things. They didn't know there was additional support that we could offer. But now as part of our admission forms, and then when we do our meet and greets, we'll, you know, part of that is highlighted as well.
Thank you. I've also just been, as you were talking, I've done like a bullet point of top tips of things that you were mentioning that you were doing, because I just thought it might be helpful for the people that are here listening. So I've just added it to the chat. If there's anything else though that I've missed, please add in. But I tried to pick out like the highlights of the things that you were mentioning.
We're laughing at Lily's comment that Kaylee was indeed awarded the first ever Parent of the Month.
Thank you.
So she's the ultimate winner. Graham, you've got a question.
Yeah, hi. I just want to say that I had the great pleasure of proofreading the case study that Moira pulled together for you. It's in the Thriving Lives Toolkit case study, and it's absolutely superb. It really highlighted what you've said today, and it was a delight to read it and to hear about the fantastic things you're doing. So well done, team. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Graham. So if we've not got any more questions for the minute, we can always revisit at the end if anyone does think of anything, or pop a question in the chat. But if we now move on to Charmian from the Armed Forces Education Trust, but like I said, if anyone does think of something, please add it into the chat, or we can wait until the end and add some more questions at the end. Charmian, hopefully you'll be able to share your screen.
Yeah, I'm just trying to do that.
Perfect.
But I'm not sure if I can see whether you guys can see it or not.
I can see it. Yeah, lovely.
Okay, that's bizarrely I can't see that you can see it, but okay, brilliant. So guys, thanks. Really lovely to be invited to tell you a bit about what we do. I've know quite a few of you on the call, but it's quite hard for us to actually talk to schools with small numbers of service children. So great opportunity. So thanks. So who are we? Well, we're a tri-service charity. We support service children anywhere in the world, and that includes Scotland as well. Because a lot of people think, oh, do you really help Scotland? But we do. Anywhere, it doesn't matter where they are. But our aim is to support service children education so that they don't miss out because of their parents' service. So mitigating the disadvantage, basically, where that occurs. And, you know, there's lots of things where they excel in, but, you know, they are vulnerable learners, as you suggested, and there are times when they do need our help. So why do people seek our help? Well, a lot of issues which I think Phil has alluded to and have come up in the last two presentations. They come to us because the mobility that can affect transitions, might be that moving to Cyprus, moving back from places, or, you know, gaps in learning because of that. You know, the thing about Welsh is a really interesting point. You know, how does the child keep that going if they're going to come back to Wales? But also changes in syllabus. If they move from one school to another, in secondary, they might move in the middle of their GCSE years and then have to start again, which is really challenging. Devolved nations probably should have put a higher, but a lot of these issues happen when they move from one devolved nation to another, because there are so many differences in the education system. They might have to totally change years because they're born where they're born, because Scotland does it differently, for example. And again, the curriculum issues are very different. Emotional difficulties, schools tend to be pretty good at dealing with these, but they might not understand the nuances of that in terms of a service child. their parent may well be weekending, and by that, for those who aren't aware of that term, it's where the one parent has decided to stay put with the children, quite often near family, and the serving parent is coming back and forth, often maybe only once or twice a month because of the distances, so they're not seeing their parent very often. And deployment is when they're deployed either individually or as a big group with their regiments or units as a whole, and that can be sort of 6 to 9 months sometimes. And sometimes in some circumstances the communication back can be really hard, but it's also difficult for the children when they know their parents going away, and actually when they then come back as well. So it's really good for schools to understand that and think about how they can support it. And then isolated schools is really the schools with small numbers who haven't got that experience of working with service children, so they're much less likely to understand what those needs are. And as I said on the other one, if you've got special educational needs or ASN, SLN, depending on where you're from, a whole host of other issues there. The fact that in different nations and also MOD schools abroad, it's called something different is the first problem. It's the way it's looked at and dealt with is totally different. Scotland have about 40-something% ASN. UK might, or England might have 20%, but that doesn't mean there's more people. It's just they're including different categories. So parents might not understand that when they move. There's also the issue of queues, and when a child is on a waiting list, they might move to a different local authority, different nation, and that can cause major problems as well. Separation, if you've got a special educational needs child and the parent is deployed or weekending, a whole lot of more difficulties, I think, on the family too. And we all know that SEND as a whole in the country is not in a great state, but if you're a service child moving from one place to another, it can be even more difficult. A child can move from one place to, even within England, to another school, and the local authority not have a place. The child may not be allowed in a school, be given a school place for at least a year, and will be at home with another parent, or with a single serving parent. That parent can have to work from home even though they're in the military, so it can then affect their career. So lots of issues around SEND. So these are the reasons people come to us and seek our help. So we've helped, we give about 600,000 to 700,000 a year now to service children in a bunch of different ways, which I'll come on to. So we give grants to schools as a whole, just addressing those issues, and for giving that extra support that school might have identified, but hasn't got the finances or the staffing to support. It could be emotional, it could be transition support, it could be the filling gaps. You've got a whole regiment, not a regiment, but a whole group of children who's arrived and have missed something. We have helped children, for example, where Gurkhas have gone to Nepalese children have come to schools in Wales and are having to do Welsh, and we've helped with extra support there in the past. Generally, what we're doing is giving schools the ability to get something going that they can continue themselves, because we can't give grants year on year for the same thing. We do give grants. I'm just going to mention this because we give grants to children in boarding schools, independent schools. Generally, it's where they're boarding for continuity and something's happened and they've lost that funding. But I also mention this to schools because where you've got children who are vulnerable, and it may be veterans' children, we've had children whether dad's in jail, or whether children who both parents maybe have got PTSD, we can actually help funding through other charities as well in a boarding school, if that is the best place for that child because of their vulnerability. So that's why I mentioned it, because we really look to schools to come to us and say, look, we've got this child who might be better somewhere else. Collaborative grants are what we call grants to individual children, but in state schools. So it can be a school coming to us or a parent, but we recognise that if you've got a child coming into your school with SEND who hasn't got any financial support because of their parent service, it's very difficult for schools to manage that. and it deflects the attention from the other children because they're having to focus on one child. So we do sometimes give grants for one-to-one support in the interim until that funding or the EHCP or the special learning plan comes through. And also for some mobility, so catch up, where there's and that often is people coming back from abroad where there's a big gap and they need to catch up. But as I said, that can come, the parent can come to us or the school. It is a means tested application, but it can come from either way, and both the parents and the school will input to that application. One project we're doing, and I put this in here really so that you've got it when Victoria sends the slides out. We're given a grant to Catterick Garrison for a project to look at SEND. Part of that project, they produced some really good videos that really for training teachers in to understand the needs of special educational need children from military families, and they're animated videos of parents talking, and I've put the link in there to the introduction, and I can send, hopefully there'll be a link to the others. It's really worth you looking at it, and really good for training for schools.
We just
to
add there. Oh, sorry, we've also got the links to all those videos on our website as well.
Oh, that's brilliant. I didn't realise that. That's fantastic. Okay. So just a few case studies, really. So this was one where someone had come back from America. They've had diagnosis. Quite often when people come back from abroad, the diagnoses in whatever country they're in can be different and not accepted. And so basically the family had to start again. And so we were able to give some support. So at least that child could come into school, have some support, while the school worked really hard to get their funding through as quickly as possible. This was a school in Hampshire that had only a few, had about 8 service children. But they had a great project. They wanted to get these children together, just like we just heard, and made a club, and they wanted to do something to bring those children together. So they got a local artist. They applied for a grant from us to pay for the artist, and the artist worked with the children over a whole term and produced this wonderful mosaic. It's quite a big thing on their school wall to celebrate service children and to get that club started. Another one was we helped the school employ a service people mentor. They had a lot of children at a big regiment nearby, a lot of underachieving children. There were problems with attendance, and there'd been a lot of large move with children going from UK to Cyprus. And so the service people mentor set up the processes to support those children, but also to make sure that those continued after their post had finished. In fact, they carried on being employed by the school, I believe, but funded elsewhere. We can give grants for, say, large numbers of children, individuals, or small numbers. And this was one where there were a few children who it was actually post-COVID, actually, but children who'd been kept at home who could have gone to school, who were really struggling, and then parents were deployed, and it was using play therapy to bring those children together, again, get them in a group, to give them that environment to discuss their issues. We've done quite a few Festival of Friends now. I don't know if some of you have been involved in them, hopefully, but we're on to, I think, the third now. We sort of did one in Oxfordshire, Lincolnshire and Portsmouth, whereby schools are formed into clusters and then work a bit like we heard just now, but working with other schools who aren't doing so much for service children to bring them together and all work on projects that they then come together at the end to share. We've recently just done an event down in Portsmouth where we had several schools in one room in a university. There was about 180 children, all working through the Never Such Innocence to talk about their experiences and friendship and what it was like to be a military child, and then present all of that in different forms, either through music, poetry and art, which was wonderful. So these projects have been really good, and I think working in clusters and supporting each other like that is fantastic. So In terms of how to apply to a grant, before I do this, the other thing that we support is Month of the Military Child. And if you don't know about that, I'm sure that SCiP probably will have a link on their website and in their newsletter about it. But April's Month of the Military Child. Never Such Innocence run a competition, an art competition for schools. It doesn't have to be service children entering, it can be anybody. And it's an art and poetry competition, and there's prizes for a school but also for individuals, and there's lots of other resources that they can provide, and there's like a wear a purple to school day at the end of April, to really focus on those lives of service children. So in terms of applying, the Thriving Lives Toolkit is a really great place to start to identify what your needs are and whether you've got the funding to support it, or if there's something that you really need to do that you can't. So we really would suggest that schools do use the Thriving Lives Toolkit to help inform their application. You can put an inquiry through our website, and then from there we would contact you to discuss it and say, look, whether we think, I don't want schools having to do applications if I don't think it's even likely to get a grant. But I would normally work with you, give you suggestions, and perhaps other places look and to talk to, and then discuss applying for a grant. This year we decided we're doing the grant applications all at one time. So I put here the deadline for the applications, and that will be for a September start. This is for schools as a whole, though. For individuals, you can come to us at any time, and the trustees are very flexible, and we will deal with them as soon as we can to get that support in place. So don't hold back on contacting us for those. This is data just for if it's a school program. And I think that's everything. So is there any questions about that?
If anyone has got any questions, if you want to raise your hand, and then we can get any questions across to Charmian. Just to make note, there is information on our website about Festival Friends projects as well that Charmian was talking about. So if you wanted to find out more about those, on our news pages on our website, there's lots of different information about Festival Friends. There's information on there about the GAP project as well, that you talk about the Catterick Garrison project. So there's lots of links on our website. I will in a second put links on here as well, so you can access them after the chat's finished. I think we've got a question. Natalie, do you want to ask your question?
I was just going to say, we've just finished Festival of Friends, the Lincolnshire one. Absolutely amazing. Good way to bring schools together. We were actually a hub lead, led 8 schools throughout the project. Just, I would shout out for it. It's absolutely amazing. Just fantastic. If you ever get a chance to join it. It's the best thing you could ever do. Just wanted to shout out for that.
Could you just do a really quick overview of what you did with your project, perhaps for the Festival of Friends project?
Yeah, so we worked on the toolkit and looked at our strengths and weaknesses. We're quite a large school, but our partner school is quite a small school for service children. So we looked at what provision we had in place, how we could improve that, how we could improve things for the parents. You know, it was simple things like updating our website. We've now got a deployment form, so when parents go away, it alerts us. Yeah, we've upped our whole game as a school just from using the toolkit.
Oh, thank you so much. That's really helpful to give just a bit of information about what the Festival Friends project's about. We've got 5 minutes left. I don't know if anyone's got any other questions, but what we're going to do is, after this webinar, the recording's going to be available. I'll also update a final slide with lots of links on there about all the different things that we've been talking about. So you've got direct links to Festival of Friends, the GAP project, Never Such Innocence, Month of the Military Child. So I'll make sure it's really easy to provide links to all these different things that we've talked about. Deborah, do you want to come in now just to talk about the project rather than in the chat, just to notify people about the project? So I've just noticed you've come in on the chat then.
Yes, thank you very much. I'll be as brief as I can. So just want to highlight to everybody that's joined today about the Achieve Your Potential project that myself at Careers Ideas have partnered with UCLan, Rebecca Steele and the Armed Forces Covenant. It's funded by the Armed Forces Covenant. And it's a project that's looking at the impact on children in the 16 to 18 category with the impact of their education when they have a parent that is serving in the military. So it started last September, it goes through to September 2026. So I'm designing the student support package for the 4 colleges that are involved in that. The lead college is Blackpool and Fylde College. So I'm a SEND governor in a secondary school, in addition to also being a careers and curriculum governor. And one of the things that we want to look at is, how we support the skills development and how impacted our forces children are when it comes to them looking at their career planning. So I just wanted to highlight that to you. If any of you want to know any more, please do get in touch with me. I'll just pop my email in the chat and then I can send you a bit more information. But thank you very much for just letting me highlight that. Thanks, Victoria.
Sorry, no problem. Thank you. Thanks for sharing. And I think some schools, and we do have some colleges here today. So yeah, if you pop your contact details in. Charmian, have you got a follow-up?
So just following on from that, one of the projects we're given a grant to, and I believe Naval Children's Charity have too, is the Forces Employment Charity. I've got a young people's project that is providing mentoring, careers advice and support for service children. So maybe you could put that link in as well, Victoria.
Yeah, I will add those in as well. Thank you. So I'm just aware of time that we've got 2 minutes left. I just wanted to add into the chat, which I've just added now, that we would be really grateful if you could fill in the evaluation from these webinar series, just so that we've got it to collect some feedback, and then we can use that feedback to inform our next webinars. You will find on our events page that we've got the next 2 webinars advertised. I will add the events page link in there as well. And there will be webinars coming up throughout the whole year. So keep an eye on our events page. Now you have attended this webinar, we'll keep your details and we'll send you some information about the next webinars coming up as well. So you'll be kept notified of what's coming up. But all the events are on our events page. Also, all the different things that we've been talking about today, the different festival friends and events and things going on, there's lots of information about that on our events pages as well, and on our news articles. So our website has got all the up-to-date information there. I will also add in a second my email address, so if you need any more information or anything else that would be helpful, drop me an email and I can get back to you. Another thank you again to our contributors today. So thank you to Lindsay, Kaylee and Charmian. Really helpful, lots of really valuable information, and hopefully you've all found it helpful as well. And like I said, this is recorded, so it will be available afterwards with all the links to all the different projects and initiatives that we've been talking about as well. So thank you so much for coming, and we'll hopefully see you at the next one, which is next month, when we will be launching all the case studies on the toolkit. So currently we have 1 case study per principal on the toolkit, but next month we're going to be adding in all 50 case studies to the toolkit, and the next webinar in February we'll be launching and talking about all the new case studies that have been added, which Graham was part of, who's been here today. So thank you so much for coming, and we shall hopefully see you in February.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.